It's not for the faint of heart, adoption. It's hard, and there can be a lot of disappointments along the way. You get shown to, family after family, and you're not chosen, and it's hard. You wonder, like, why didn't I get chosen? I will say, though, as you pursue it, at least I found that as time went on, I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And I did reflect back, like, yeah, I really, really wanted this, because I didn't stop no matter what.
Your dream is to become a mom. My dream is to help you get there. I'm Rebecca Gruenspan, a single mom through domestic adoption and an adoption consultant for over a decade. I'll be your guide, along with other adoption professionals and members of the adoption constellation, walking you step by step down this beautiful and complex path of adopting your baby. When I was going through the adoption process, I had no idea what I was doing, what I needed to know, or more importantly, who to trust. Well, after helping hundreds and hundreds of families grow through the beauty and complexity of adoption, I've learned more than a thing or two, and let me tell you, it's not always rainbows and butterflies. This isn't just another podcast sharing adoption stories, but it's for you if you're genuinely committed to diving in with an open heart, eager to learn everything there is to know about adopting a baby so that you can show up for yourself and your child in the best way possible. This podcast is for you if you're ready to put your newfound knowledge into action. Adoption isn't for the weak of heart, and it certainly isn't done when your baby gets placed in your arms. If that's what you think, I'm afraid you're living in La La Land. My promise to you is to keep it real if you promise to keep digging. We'll acknowledge the hard, and we'll also celebrate the joy that is adoption. You ready? Let's do this. Hey there, hopeful parents. I have a question for you. Ever thought about adopting as a single parent? Well, buckle up, because today's guest is about to take us on a wild ride through the twists and turns of single parenthood through adoption. I'm thrilled to welcome my ride or die, Kerry Hackett, to the show. Kerry and I go way back, bonded by our journey to motherhood. From day one to today, our friendship has weathered it all, just like Kerry's journey as a single mama through adoption. Today, Kerry's opening up about her real deal experiences, from the heartwarming highs to the tear your hair out lows. With a daughter who's a force of nature at age 11, Kerry's experienced it all. Her family is beautifully transracial, and her daughter's adoption is fully open. So we'll be sure to touch on that too. But here's the kicker. Kerry has also been a full-time executive, juggling the demands of single parenthood and career like the boss she is, and somehow finds time to volunteer for her community and care for her cockapoo, Lucy, who we might hear. How does she do it? Well, that's what we're here to find out. So get ready for some real talk, because you're in for a treat. Welcome to the Adoption Roadmap Podcast, Kerry. Let's dive in. Yes, you are welcome.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you here. And we are going to just dive right into some questions. So tell me, what motivated you to pursue adoption as a single mama? And did you have any doubts about it?
Just a few.
I mean, I didn't, but just kidding.
Yeah, you might be the first one. Yeah, it's funny. I remember very vividly an experience that I had. I was working very hard at the time. I was working for United Airlines and working all the time, climbing the proverbial ladder, if you will, and just like really wasn't dating. Literally, I'm not even kidding you. I was sitting on my couch one night and I was like, oh my God, I forgot to get married. I wasn't paying enough attention to it. And I was 40 years old. And I was working hard, and, I bought my first house, and, I was doing all the things, but I just hadn't worked dating into it. And so I was like, oh my God, I got to get on it, So, I joined every, online service and hired expensive matchmakers and did all the things, went to every benefit in the city, and, just didn't happen. I was getting really tired of it as well. And I kind of had a little bit of a discussion with myself about it and kind of thought about, okay, and this is terrible, but like I literally thought if I were to pass away someday, I stay hit by a bus, which is awful. But anyway, it's the way I thought about it. If I get hit by a bus, would I regret not getting married or would I regret not being a mom? And I really realize that like, okay, well, if I'm not going to find anybody, I really, really want to be a mom. How can I do that? It's, it's sort of like when you're shopping for a car and you see the car that you want everywhere all of a sudden. I just started talking about having a family a little bit more openly, and people started sharing their stories with me, and I started learning more about like literally like conception without a partner, and had some great discussions and decided, I think I want to do this by myself, and did more and more research. I joined every group. I read every book. Back then it was like a listserv. We didn't even have like Facebook groups and things like that. So it was like a listserv of things that people were talking about. And I really read up a lot, and I realized like each day that passed, I wanted to do it more and more. So I started to pursue getting pregnant on my own. And that was
You mentioned something about conception on your own, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around that piece of it. But
well, why did I say it that way? What am I, a doctor?
But I think I know where you're going with that. So go ahead.
Trying to have a child on my own. Conception, the immaculate conception, basically. Anyway, it didn't work, so there was no conception. But anyway, so I worked on that for a long time. A lot of money, a lot of heartache, a lot of hormones, and a lot of tears. And I was really hell-bent on like, I must be pregnant. I want to have that experience that everybody and their brother had. Everybody is pregnant. And I really thought like, I got to do it. I must do it. And then in one of my groups, a woman said to me, who I wish I knew who she was. I wish I had written it down or kept the email or something, because she said to me, do you want to be pregnant or do you want to be a mom? And I was like, whoa.
So good.
And I was like, right. Like what, kind of wish she had said to, like 5 procedures prior,
right.
that someone had mentioned that to me. And I guess it wasn't on my radar. And once I got on my radar about adoption, then my heart was like, duh, like, what is my problem? Why didn't I do this? I actually have some regret about not sort of first going to adoption because of how beautifully it turned out for me and how amazing Grace is. And I guess it wouldn't be Grace if these things didn't go in the order they were. But anyway, and you were really my closest inspiration. You were a little bit ahead of me. And I remember vividly having a glass of wine with a yellow legal pad and taking a ton of notes from you. And truthfully, I would say that I was your first client. It's like you were natural at consulting. You just told me the ins and the outs and the ups and the downs and the good and the bad, and just really guided me about what I needed to do and really got me excited in a nervous way. And then I just like started the process. So thanks to you, really, because you set me off on my journey.
I was just talking to somebody, and thank you for that. It always is a privilege to have a hand in anybody's journey. But I was just talking to somebody and about how I got started, and which was about 2 years after I adopted my son, also as a single mom. But I remember telling people, and I don't know if you remember this or not, or if I even said this to you, but I remember telling people, if you are going to adopt, you have to use my consultant because I won't let you do this alone.
You gave me her name. So, and I think what you expressed to me, which I know your clients know this, but maybe future clients don't, having someone in your court, a consultant who will answer all your questions. And there are a whole lot of questions. Yeah. And some of it's minutia, like just how does this work? Or where do I go for this? Or, they sent me this and I don't know what to do with it. Or how do I research this? It was just like so overwhelming. I mean, it really was a second full-time job.
For
and
sure.
doing it alone as well was, sort of double the pressure. I would say, you really couldn't hand it off to anybody. It was on your shoulders 24/7.
I remember asking, tell me what I need to read and research and what I don't. I'm not going to start going down this rabbit hole if you can just tell me what to do. Did you use a consultant?
So I ended up using a consultant, yes.
Yeah.
And it was probably the best money I ever spent because there
Yeah.
were things that, as, sort of a layman, I didn't know about the industry, right? So, as I was sort of looking into adoption, before I could pursue a consultant, I was sort of just going to agencies in my town. I live in
Mm-hmm.
Illinois, so I was going to places in Chicago and Evanston. And I, at the time, was almost 41 years old. And there were places that wouldn't accept me for my age. Like there were
Mm-hmm.
countries that wouldn't accept me. Very few countries could I adopt from outside of the US.
Mm.
So there were things I just didn't even know. I thought, well, I could just walk in and figure this out and it would be easy, but it wasn't at my age. And certainly not as a single woman. So I learned a lot, and I'm very thankful that I ended up with a consultant because not all paths were open to me. I ended up with 2 lawyers and 3 agencies.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you're almost 41 years old, you're single, it could take a little while.
Mm-hmm.
So let's increase your chances. The other thing that's really important, and I know you consult on this, I'm sure with every client, is the financial part of it is hard, and certainly as a single person, it's really, really hard. And there are questions that you kind of don't really want to talk to people about
Mm-hmm.
financing, adoption, and it's a hard discussion, and that you really have to sort of work through your personal finances. And I don't like talking to people about money. And I appreciated that she understood that I had just gone through a lot of finances spent on trying to get pregnant. And
Mm-hmm.
so she worked with me to find agencies that would work with my limits financially. And because by that point, I was out of a lot of money. So I think if you have a consultant who will sort of hear your total story about your journey and
Mm.
where you are as an individual with your job and what you've done already, or in your case, I know this happens to you, they come from other places that they've been waiting 3 years, and then they come to you and
Yeah.
they adopt in like 3 6 months. There's a difference when you have a consultant, and it makes such a difference in going through really personal things and telling someone what you've been through. So I had to talk to her about my finances. She had recommendations for agencies, for example, that, you had less of a chance of losing money. There are some
Mm.
places where you lose everything if there's an adoption that falls through. And that happens in adoption, as you know, and you have to kind of be prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously the first thing that, in the industry that people want is for the family to, be together. And if that can happen and that mother decides to parent their child, then of course, you want to step back and go to a family that needs an adoptive family, not someone that, changes their mind. You don't want to put yourself in that position. So you have to be prepared financially for that. In some places, you lose a little money for the work that they do prior. So anyway, I signed up with 3 agencies and 2 lawyers, and then did an enormous amount of paperwork and, FBI, fingerprinting, and financial reviews and mental reviews and physical reviews and reviews of my house and my fire escape plan, and you name it. I went through it. And so it was quite a long process, and it was hard. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Sure. And you mentioned at the beginning that some countries weren't open to you. So did you look at the international path as well? And how did you
Yeah.
kind of end up at domestic infant?
Yeah, I did. Well, I remember talking to you about it as well. And,
Okay.
and one of the challenges, um, at least for my situation, as you know, it's so individual. One,
Mm.
there were not a lot of countries that I could adopt from. Two, the process in many of the countries required a lot of going back and forth. Or I guess you could choose that. Again, this was almost 12 years ago, so I don't remember all the details, but I remember being like, I can't leave work that many times to go to Haiti or Russia or wherever. And so I knew that that wasn't feasible for my lifestyle or
Mm-hmm.
financially, going back and forth on international trips 2 3 times a year with hotels and flights and things like that. And then also, it sounded like the waits were extremely long in addition. So I just was like, I want to do it here, in the
Yeah.
States. And it just didn't seem feasible for me. And there also weren't a lot of countries that I could adopt from. So it just seemed that all the signs for me were pointing to the US.
Okay. And then you said you signed up with 5 agencies. Great. And I know a lot of people are probably listening going, isn't each one like $10,000? What does she mean working
Oh,
within your
yeah, good
budget?
point.
So,
Yeah. So, not all agencies require an upfront amount. And, you do this every day. So, better than I do. Back then, I signed up with places that didn't require either a large or any upfront fee. And then I also had this additional requirement of like either a minimal loss if there was a fall through, or no loss if there was a fall through. Now, this is 12 years later. I don't know how many agencies do or don't do it that way anymore, but that was critical for me. And then two lawyers as well, who focused on adoption. So that was really important to me as I was shown to families. I'm assuming they still do it. You know better than I do, that there's a variety of ways and compensation plans that these agencies have.
Yeah, for sure. Not as much as there was 10 years ago. I think the low upfront fees have gotten a little bit higher. The threshold for what is low is different. There are still very few that don't require any money up front, or there are some that don't even keep a list and will only work through consultants to find families. But yeah, there's still a ton that are low. Just the threshold for low is different. And then that at-risk amount has also changed. More and more agencies can't take on that risk. It just depends on how they operate. There are some who the risk is very, very low. And there are others who, the risk is typically what's already been spent. Now, there are some larger agencies where you pay a lot up front and the risk is either none or very, very little. And that's where you have to get into which strategy is best for you, right?
Yeah.
So,
and making those decisions. Yeah. And I mean, you illuminate exactly what I'm saying. Making those decisions on your own in your office is hard to do. It's really nice to banter with someone who understands that.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. Did you ever feel lonely being a single woman and going through this process?
Of course. Had I had my druthers, I sort of thought that my life was going to turn out the very stereotypical, get married and have a family. I mean, and I would live without the fence, I just kind of thought I would have a partner, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't care about the fence, but, I did think I guess I hadn't thought of my life without a partner until I got older and realized I didn't really do a lot to find one. And then when I did try to find one, it was just not the right time. It didn't work out. And, I have a lot of years left, so that I can do that later. But so, yeah, of course it's lonely. My family, when I first told them, as you mentioned, I had a big job and had, thank God, held one for a long time throughout Grace's life. I worked for a fantastic company. They were unbelievably supportive and fantastic about the whole process. Me having to leave on a dime. It was a fantastic company to work for through that process. I will say, my family thought, like, what are you thinking? Like, how are you going to do this and work? And I'm like, well, there are plenty of single mothers in the world. I just happen to be a single mom that's like choosing to pursue it and go after being a mom by myself, because the other plan, if you will, and again, it's more like a stereotypical plan, which I think is very different. Even 10 years later, I don't think I think the path has just changed for women who are looking into their life plan than even when you and I were thinking about it. There were times that I was like, I would wake up, and I'm sure you did too, wake up in the middle of the night with my eyes wide open, like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, what am I thinking? Or you see other parents like at the grocery store and the kid's losing it and you're like, I cannot do this. What am I thinking?
I mean, I remember people saying, are you nuts? Like, it's hard enough with two people, let alone yourself.
That's what everybody said.
But my answer was always, that won't be my experience. That won't ever.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully some day maybe, but that won't be my reality. So from the get-go, we had to adjust, and our reality is our reality, which is very different than a couple's reality parenting.
Yeah, I don't think women who choose to go the path of proactively choosing to be a single parent, I think that they're unusually strong by nature. I think that you can't really walk into this process without sort of an inherent strength about you, because you're choosing something that's going to be hard. I do think that, it's a brave decision. And so by nature, I think we have just sort of a little bit of maybe an edge, a strength, unique little personality tick in there that's just a little different, that you're willing to go it alone. So you go into it knowing it's just you. I mean, you can't yell at anybody, take the garbage out until your kid's older, of course. But, so it is what it is. Like, you got to take the garbage out. You got to do the cleaning. You got to make dinner, and you got to go to work.
Yeah.
Yep. You got to get up at 3 a.m. It is what it is.
There's no negotiating.
No, I mean,
except for with yourself.
Except for with you. Yeah. 5 more minutes.
Right.
Sleep. I will say one thing, and certainly for those women who are considering it and are older, a little bit older, I will say in pursuing it and really having those 3 a.m, 4 a.m, 5 a.m, feedings and then going to work for a full day. It really was the highlight of my, it has been and continues to be the highlight of my life. I was excited when she woke up in the middle of the night and people were like, oh, God, you're kidding me. I couldn't wait to see her again. Putting her to bed when she finally moved from the bassinet next to my bed to her own room. It was a sad day, And my doctor's like, she's got to get in her room, I'm like, oh.
We weren't dealing with the physical stuff of our body.
Right,
we had been hoping for this for so long and anticipating it. And it's like, I couldn't get enough. So I couldn't get enough
either. And I loved the feedings and you work through the tired. I mean, like any parent, you work through the tired, but especially when you're the only one feeding the child in the middle of the night, it's just like, I just couldn't wait to see her again. I literally couldn't. And those are some of my favorite memories. I had like about 3.5 months maternity leave, thank God. And those are some of my favorite moments. I just remember them so vividly, just rocking her in the chair and feeding her and staring at her and just being so unbelievably grateful to her birth mom. I think you just are very used to the lifestyle that you choose to enter into. And I will say about strength, it's not for the faint of heart. Adoption, it's hard, and there can be a lot of disappointments along the way. You get shown to family after family and you're not chosen, and it's hard. You wonder, like, why didn't I get chosen? I will say though, as you pursue it, at least I found that as time went on, I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And I did reflect back, like, I really, really wanted this, because I didn't stop no matter what. Nothing could change my mind that I wanted to be a mom. Nothing. It didn't matter what battle, what, boulder was put in front of me. I was like, okay, let me tackle this one. Okay, what's the next one? All right, next, and I really look back and go, yeah, this obviously was what was my dream, and I wasn't going to let it go.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I have worked with people in the past who start the process and then they start dating someone and say, well, I'm going to see where this goes. Inevitably, a year later, they come back. And it's like, I get it. I always thought I would do this with somebody. And like you said, nothing was going to stop you. So if that does happen to somebody, great. Like, talk about it. Is that person on board if the relationship continues and do this together? Putting things on hold is such a risk if it's something that you really, really want. Or what have been some unexpected surprises that you've experienced as a single parent? Before we go on, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go away. We still have so much to talk about. The Adoption Roadmap podcast is sponsored by the Adoption Roadmap Academy, the only online program of its kind for hopeful adoptive parents like you who want step-by-step guidance, preparing for your home study, creating a compelling adoption profile book, choosing the right agencies, and more so that you can bring your baby home sooner. As an adoption consultant and adoptive mom who's been where you are, I'm going to guide you step-by-step through everything you need to know about the domestic infant adoption journey from home study to finalization. And the great part is you get to do it at your own pace with a supportive community behind you. The Adoption Roadmap Academy is a step-by-step guide to domestic infant adoption for hopeful individuals and families who are sick and tired of waiting forever. It's the first and only self-paced adoption consultant-led program that shows you exactly how to navigate the domestic adoption process from home study to finalization. With our proven 4-step adoption roadmap model, you're going to be able to save time you can't make up, hours and weeks and even months of tedious legwork and research are done for you. You're going to be able to go at your own pace. No matter what else is going on in life, nobody's going to be breathing down your throat. You are going to be able to gain and keep momentum because everything is going to be spoon-fed for you in exactly the way you need. You are going to possibly even save money by knowing how to vet situations and working with the right agencies. It could save you a lot of heartache. You are going to be able to access this course anytime, anywhere, and get expert guidance and support, not only by me, but also by an amazing community who know exactly what you are walking through. Here's what you can expect inside. You'll be getting streaming videos, worksheets, bonus resources, an adoption profile creation, agency contacts, live streams to connect with other people, and unending education, all using our 4-step proprietary Adopt Roadmap model. Plus, you'll be receiving a bonus mindset step that I highly recommend for everyone. So if you're interested in starting your adoption journey and ready to fast forward and simplify your domestic adoption process, please email the word Academy to support@rgadoptionconsulting.com today, and we'll get you started.
I have friends who, really wanted a family and sort of watched from the side and sort of asked me questions, or, I went so far as to go with them on appointments to learn more about having a family on their own and just never pulled the trigger. If I had $1 for every woman who ended up not marrying, and at some party or some meeting at work or at some event pulled me aside and said, I have to tell you, I wish I had done it. And I would have a healthy savings account. It was really eye-opening to me. And I look back and really am very grateful that I moved through the fear, and that listen, I did not do, I will say, I make it sound like, oh, I handled this all on my own. I have a wonderful family network. I have wonderful friends, as you know, and people who are in my corner. And my tribe is fantastic. There's no better tribe than my tribe. And I'm very, very thankful and grateful. And ultimately, you do it by yourself. And I am so thankful that I just kept pushing. I'm 56 years old and have an almost 12-year-old. I'm so thankful I'm her mom. I'm so grateful that I get the opportunity to be a parent. And, I spent my weekend of my birthday at a dance competition, and I was exhausted, but seeing her up there winning award after award for her dance and smiling and doing her hair and her eyelashes was what I wanted. So that was a surprise. Other surprises are, one of the surprises I think was also just the assumption about you being married. I'm sure you get this all the time. That'd be at a party or in, a community event at the school or something. If you were standing next to a man, would be like, is this your husband? No, it's my girlfriend's husband. But anyway, awkward, or you'd be on the playground and someone would compliment Grace, on her eyelashes or her beautiful hair or something. And they'd be like, I bet Daddy, doesn't want you to grow up, and we just kind of laugh. Sometimes we take the opportunity to correct, depended on the situation and how long you're talking to someone. And if you wanted to get into it, but yeah. And then, we're a transracial adoptive family. So that adds a layer, I've been called the babysitter, are you babysitting for her? When I brought her to doctor's appointments, I'm like, I'm dragging someone else's kid to my doctor's appointment. People have flat out asked me when she was a baby, is that your baby? Yes, she's mine. And have her on my chest and walking through the grocery store with.
Things people will say or ask or want to know. I get it.
So you just get used to it. And, for those new adoptive parents or those that are considering it, you get used to it. And the great thing about adopting, at least for me, I was very grateful and thankful to have adopted newborn, You have time to practice your answers while they're a baby.
Yeah,
You
good
can
point.
practice like how to answer those questions about the husband and the color of her skin and, who
Mm-hmm.
are you and to her and those kind of questions. You have time to practice it so that by the time they're older, and can comprehend what's happening with them, your answers are so confident that, I see with Grace, her answers are confident now when she gets them. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll show up, like, she has a new grade every year, new kids, and I show up to a parent event and they sort of look at me and look at her and they're like, that's your mom? Like kids are funny. They just say it out loud. Hi. It just takes them a minute and then they sort of get over it. Or Grace will be like, yeah, and or Father's Day stuff. Like, she'll be making something for her two uncles and they're fantastic. And they treat her like the princess she is. And she'll make things for them at Father's Day. And kids will be like, what are you doing? She's like, well, I don't have a dad. It's just very transparent, honest, raw, if you will. And people are sort of like, okay, some of that stuff is surprising about
Yeah.
assumptions people make, but you get through it.
Do you think there are advantages to parenting as a single woman, as a single
Mm,
mom?
I do. It may sound like, I don't know, it may sound kind of selfish. I'm not sure. I really like making the decisions myself. I like, and
Me too.
maybe it's a tad type A controlling personality, possibly, but I like making the decisions on vacations. I like making the decisions about her
Mm,
health care. I like making decisions about how I, help her with school and what she pursues as extracurricular activities. She's a dancer, as I mentioned. Those things are, I like sort of being the one that, makes all the decisions and I don't have to consult with anybody. I don't have to negotiate. I don't have a mother-in-law. Just kidding. Some
yeah,
people love their mother-in-law.
right.
There are wonderful mother-in-laws in the world. But I don't have to deal with another family or sharing her time. Like I obviously have friends who are married and may have ended up divorced, and this balance with another parent of sharing kid on weekends and things like
Yeah.
that. I just, truthfully, I have her all to myself and it's kind of great. I remember one time when I said to Grace, like, well, maybe I'll do a little dating, you're older now. And, and she's
Yeah.
like, no, no. Mm-mm. And I'm like, what? Why not? I mean, don't you want, like, wouldn't it be fun if I had a boyfriend or, maybe even a husband? She's like, no, I like it the way it is. Don't date.
Oh, that's so
So,
nice.
yeah,
I've,
we have a
I've,
nice thing.
yeah, my son always did want me to find someone and,
Funny.
he wanted a daddy.
Yeah.
And this was pre, his birth father coming into our lives, and he kind of
Mm,
backed up off after that. He's
mm,
very supportive though, if and when I do go out on a date.
yeah.
But recently it has just like hit me like a ton of bricks that I really love our family unit
Yeah.
of the two of us. Like, and I think it comes with, I don't know, a lot of TV shows with dysfunctional families and movies, and you see
Hmm.
like how one parent could be great and the other parent might not be, and you just never
Hmm.
know. And I'm not, obviously every family is different, but it just made me step back and realize, we have a good thing going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Very
I
blessed.
feel like he sees that as well. There's definitely a lot of positives to be in a sense of pride, right?
Oh, yeah.
That
Yes.
we are making the choices, whether it's good choices or bad choices.
Right.
Listen, every parent
You own it.
struggles
Yeah.
with that. But okay, so what are the biggest challenges then
Yeah.
being a single mom?
The first thing that comes to mind is sort of obvious, I guess, for me, is the financial side of it, right?
Yeah.
I have a strong sense of how critical it is that I have a good job and can take care of my
Mm,
family. Truthfully, until I was a single mom, I really didn't understand the pressure of the parent that is responsible for taking care of the family, male or female,
yes.
right? And so I certainly didn't understand, my sisters who stayed at home and their husbands went to work every day, what they must be feeling about not the obligation, the worry of, having to provide for a family and all the things that go into that as they
Mm-hmm.
grow, right? So like we have kids that are almost teenagers. We're thinking about college now, right?
Yeah.
I've been putting measly little amounts into a 529 plan since Grace was 2. It's still not enough money. I've been saving for 10 years. It's still not enough money to get
Well,
her
it
to
keeps
college,
going up and up and up. Yeah.
right. So financially, and then also just, to be, really transparent. I lost my job in November and I was laid off from a company that I was at for 20 years. And the pressure to find a good job is very significant. We have a beautiful home in the suburb of Chicago, and she is a dancer, which isn't cheap. You know, we have obligations and plenty of bills, and so it's very stressful. And it would have been nice if I could have, you know, been like, hey, your turn for a little while. I'm going to take a year off or something. I don't have that luxury. I started looking for a job the day I was laid off and haven't stopped. You know, it's hard. I'm a little bit older. I'm very tenured. So my journey has been taking a while. I'm hoping that will turn around at some point soon, but it's pressure. And then every now and then, and I know you feel this as a single parent, is just the weight of everything, right? Just worrying about their education and how they're doing in school, and worrying about their friendships, and, you know, do they have the right mix of academics and extracurricular activity? You know, Grace dances all the time. Just worrying about all the things related to raising a good human. Am I doing all the right things? So that's real pressure, you know? I guess those are the big ones for me.
For sure. I remember when I first adopted, I was working full time. You know, I had to take the train to and from work and all the stuff. And when you have a kid, they get sick a lot. The daycare or whoever's watching them. In my case, it was daycare. I think you had somebody at home, which is also a different dynamic, right? I'd get a call and I'd have to leave. 5 o'clock came and I was out the door by 5:01 and no later. And guess what came back to bite me in the ass at every review I got? You leave at the drop of a hat, you know, and I'm like, no, you don't get, even working with all women who are moms, right? It sometimes comes back to bite you in the butt. And that is a really hard thing to navigate, because you, especially if your child is going through something, right? And it takes you away from work, forget about it. Do you still have a job tomorrow?
Right.
So,
and, you know,
that pressure.
And I think, you know, it becomes, you know, I don't want to get too political, but it does, if you think about the flip side, you know, that a father runs out to go to his kid's Little League game and everybody thinks he's a great dad. Right. You know, but a mom that runs out to go to a dance recital is like, oh, where's she going? You know,
you're leaving your responsibilities,
you know, or like leaving because the kid is sick, and they herald the father up on a pedestal, like, you're going to take care of your kid. My God, that's wonderful. But a mom is like, oh, there she goes again. I am very thankful I didn't work in a community like that. It was very open. And I will say, and at least in my observations, I think the trends have shifted since COVID, and the attention to, you know, work-life balance is higher these days. And I think companies know that healthy people outside of work are fantastic employees, and will give back, and will be very thankful for you to treat them well and understand their family values. So I do think it's changed a bit over the course of time. But, you know, Grace has, I mean, you know, in her very young years, she was sick a lot. She had asthma, she had eczema, she had febrile seizures. I mean, she had a lot going on, and she was sick a lot. And a lot of, you know, hospital runs to get her on a nebulizer. That's something to factor into your decision making. Like, you know, you have to be able to work that in. And then your tribe, right? It's hard. You know, sometimes I feel guilty about tapping into my tribe. I have 2 sisters. They're fantastic.
Don't ever feel guilty about tapping into this tribe.
Well, ditto. Same on this side. You know, you have to consider who the people are around you. And certainly your consultant is one of those people, right? You know, I still ask you questions about stuff as your adoption journey evolves, right? You may have questions as time goes on, even after you've adopted.
One thing I was going to say, as you were talking about, like, you lost your job, or when things get tough for you to hold down the fort, so to speak, right? I think as a single parent, your child also feels that more than if you were married. Because I know it's really hard for us, because we don't have another person to say, I can't right now. I am so stressed out. So they feel our stress, our joy, our sadness, our anger, our everything in a way more intense way, I think, than if you were to have a partner. And of course, you know, as they get older, there are bigger problems, right? So,
sure. Yeah. Bigger kids, bigger problems.
Bigger kids.
Yeah. And, you know, and I do think even that, like, so I agree with you. I think there's definitely two sides on that. One is, at least for our family, what works for us is I'm just honest. Like, you know, there are days that I'm just not on my A game. And I will literally say to Grace, like, I'm having a bad day. I'm sorry I snipped at you. I apologize. There are no secrets in my family. She knew she was adopted from the beginning. Yes. She knew about her birth family from the beginning. That's a whole story about how blessed we are to have such a good relationship with her birth mother and family. But, like, So one is that it creates this bond and relationship that is very unique, that I can say to my daughter, and she's almost 12 now, so it's obviously different. When they're babies, they don't get
Yeah.
it. But now that she's older, I can say, I'm sorry, honey, I've been looking for a job for 4 months and it's stressing me out. Or, you have, dance costume payments are due and it's stressing me out because I don't have a job, or things that come up. And, I'm really honest with her. Sometimes that can weigh on you too. You don't want to put pressure on your kid about like you losing a job, but like just if
Right.
you're having a bad day, you can at least be honest about like, I'm sorry, I'm like super stressed today. It has nothing to do with you. You're wonderful. It's me. I'm just having a bad day and I'm off, And then the flip side of that, so that creates sort of this wonderful tight bond. The flip side of that is, yeah, it would be really nice sometimes to have somebody to unload on at night. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, when the kid's asleep and everything's quiet, I had a horrendous day. And let me tell you all the things that went wrong. And I'm freaking tired. And I don't want to do it again tomorrow. That's a hard thing. But
Yeah.
that's when you tap into your people, right? Ask for help. Single parent
Yeah.
rule number one is like,
There you
ask
go.
for help. Don't be a
Piece of
martyr.
advice. Yes.
Do not be a
Ask
martyr.
for help. I love that. So do you take care of yourself? Do you have a work-life balance? And I know you're not working right now, but even a parent life balance?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It ebbs and flows. Like, you and I were just talking about before we started about, I spent my birthday weekend at a dance recital. Actually, two dance competitions, and one was in Milwaukee out of town, and one was way in the burbs in Aurora. So it was a crazy 2 days. 14, 16-hour days. Redoing hair and makeup and clothes, but also very gratifying. And you get pretty tired. But I really try to get my workouts in. Truthfully, as an older parent, I'm 56. She's almost 12. I want to see her have a family someday in whatever way she chooses. And so I, put a priority on taking care of myself. And she's a pretty darn good motivation because I want to be around and I want to see her life, evolve. So I try to find the time to take care of myself and work out. Listen, I've been going to dinner with my girlfriend since she was a baby because that fuels me and feeds me and I need it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and we've done it together when you were living here. We did it a lot. If a babysitter costs a little bit more, or you beg your mom or you beg a girlfriend, like, I need a night. Will you please just take her for a few hours? I will go down the street. I won't go far, get your gaggle of, high school teenagers in your neighborhood and get them lined up because it feeds you and makes you a better parent. I think it makes me a better parent that I have wonderful relationships that fuel me and feed me and, give me a chance to just be with my girls, which is
let me
quite
just
important to me.
say something to that wonderful support system and community, good friends or family members. First of all, shout out to them. They hold us up a lot. However, what I was going to say was, let's talk about birthdays for a second, Mother's Day. Unless your friends or family do something for you in their name, they are not going to be acknowledged. And that can hurt as a single mom.
Yeah.
Right? Honey, today you have to be extra good to me because it's my birthday or it's Mother's Day. They don't give a shit.
Oh
They're
God.
kids.
It's so
just warning single moms to be, just push birthdays and Mother's Day aside for the first, 15 years or so.
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe girls will be a little bit better earlier.
And maybe. I would also say this is probably a mother thing in general. Partnered, married, single.
That's true. Husbands.
I'm a consultant with some husbands I know when it comes to Mother's Day and birthdays. I will say I think that they need a little birdie whispering in their ear too. But I agree. In fact, it's funny you say that because yesterday was my birthday and Grace was performing and they won a big award and Grace they were up, accepting this big award and the kids were all lined up and Grace was standing next to her bestie Ruby. And the lady asked all their names and then said, what else do you want to say to everybody today? And put the mic in front of Grace. And she sort of stared into space. And Ruby, her bestie, whispered to her. And Grace goes, oh, yeah, I want to wish my mom a happy birthday.
Oh, thank God for Ruby. She
God
came
bless
through
Ruby.
for you.
She really did. It was super cute. And they actually worked me into one of the dances. They sang happy birthday to me. It was really cute.
Aww.
They actually had a birthday dance that they're doing this year. And so at the end of it, they yelled, "Happy birthday, Kerry." It was super cute.
Aw.
Very sweet, but it was really funny that she had to be reminded up there. And so I went to Ruby and I said, "I think you were a little birdie in Gracie's ear today. Thank you."
That was so
cute.
nice. Is there an organization or a person who's really impacted the way you look at adoption or really impacted your adoption journey, whether while
Gosh.
you were going through it or up to today?
Yeah. Well, most women that I talk to who are single, women who want to become a parent, I recommend Single Mothers by Choice. It was a saving grace for me for the
Yeah.
last 12 years. Now we've migrated to online groups, which is great. Back in the day, we had meetings in person. That's where you and I met. We were at the beginning of our journeys, and we met each other and like instantly connected when I gave you a ride to your car in the cold. And that was very fulfilling because, listen, in any situation, but especially in my opinion, being a single parent, having people who understand what you're going through and able to talk to them about it and ask all those nitty gritty questions
Yeah.
makes a huge difference. And I can't speak more positively about having those people in your corner. I've even told people, join Single Mothers by Choice and be a lurker if you're not into talking.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
read or search a topic or whatever it is, like those resources there. And then there's a ton of adoption resources online. Just ask your friend what their favorite is. I'm on some transracial adoption boards, which are really helpful when you're talking about things like skincare and hair care. Over time, you obviously learn to do that with your, either your friends or you go to a place that can help you with that, so you consult with folks that have that lived experience if you're adopting transracially. So all those things are fantastic resources and they're places for you that are safe to ask questions and, be transparent about, what you need help with.
Awesome. Well, I've loved everything you had to say about being a single mom. I'm going to end with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Just for fun.
Okay.
If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
They don't have to be adoption related. This is just in general. God, I would tell her, you are fantastic. Learn it now. I learned it a little later in life. I would have just told her, like, you're so fantastic. Don't settle for anything that isn't worthy of you, and you're a badass and you're going to have a fantastic life. Don't worry about a thing.
Love it. What's the most important lesson you've learned in your life so far?
Well, if I can be a little religious, I'm Catholic. I, went to Catholic schools for God, like 10 years. So I just would say I really, and really the adoption with Grace really was this story for me because I really have my heart set on pregnancy, as I mentioned, that for me, it was that it's God's plan, not yours. And for me, that resonates, for those that aren't religious or have a faith, that's cool. For me, it was just very apparent to me that he knew better. And my adoption went very quickly and she came very quickly to me. And it was really, in my opinion, a manifestation of my belief that, God had a plan for me and she was always meant to be.
Beautiful.
So.
Beautiful. I think I know the answer to the next one, but who are the 3 most influential people in your life and how have they impacted you?
Yeah, well, I would say my sisters and my mom. My sisters and I have a unusually strong bond. We don't fight, we don't argue, we talk to each other 1,000 times a day. We've been very blessed to have a wonderful, very, very tight-knit relationship, and they've helped me up and I hold them up, and I'm very fortunate. And my mom has just been my beacon of strength through all of this and my biggest cheerleader through everything, job loss, adoption, you name it. When things are good, when things are bad, she's my cheerleader. She's been through, some things in her own life and really showed me what a strong woman is. And so she is definitely our, she's been a guiding light for me and helped me become very strong. And even times when I don't feel so strong, those 3 women really help me out and hold me up when I can't do it myself.
That's so beautiful. What's a book, movie, or podcast you'd recommend to people?
Oh, gosh. I'll be honest, I'm spending more time on LinkedIn than reading books or listening to podcasts, trying to find a job.
I know you're a true crime junkie.
I was going to say I'll scare people with this, but I love this podcast called True Crime Bullshit. It's a fascinating story about a serial killer. And it's just, I actually studied criminal justice for a little while at the beginning of college. I didn't pursue it, but so I have a little weird fascination about crime. I'm fascinated by the psychology of criminals. So that's my recommendation. It's really good if you like crime.
Awesome. To wind everything up, 3 words that describe adoption to you.
Magical, a blessing, powerful.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kerry, for being part of the
Oh, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Adoption Roadmap podcast. If you did, I have a few favors to ask of you. First, please hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, I'd love to hear your takeaways. Please write a review and let me know what you liked. And if you have a question or a suggestion on what you'd like to hear, I'd love to hear that too. Please shoot me an email at support@rgadoptionconsulting.com and let me know what you'd like to hear about. And if you have a question, I may just answer it online. Thanks again for listening. Tune in every Wednesday and Friday morning for a brand new episode of the Adoption Roadmap podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.